Hey, horror fans, once again, it is me, the Horror Mizamani G, once again doing a live stream. And once again, I have my good friend Mark the Movie Man is here. Say hello to the horror fans, Mark.
It is an honor to be here. Hello, all you horror fiends out there.
Now, every now and again, like say every other month, Mark and I, and mostly some other guests, like we get together and we talk about some of the things that are going on in movie land. And basically, since we're finally getting back to normal, three highly anticipated horror movies, which were delayed because of COVID-19, finally were distributed today. One was Spiral, from the Book of Saw. The other was The Conjuring 3, The Devil Make Me Do It, and of course, A Quiet Place Part 2. Now that since both Mark and I have seen all three movies, we're now going to talk about it. So, of course, we're going to spoil the crap out of all three movies. So, if you haven't seen them, I suggest you wait, see those movies first, and then watch the replay. All right, so the first one we're gonna discuss is a Spiral from the Book of Saw. We're gonna go with that one first. Now, obviously, when it was first announced that Chris Rock was going to star in this one, what was your initial reaction about Chris Rock starring in a horror movie?
For me, I was curious because I wasn't hesitant. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be horrible. But I was curious on how he would handle a more dramatic, serious type role, because we've seen some comedians make that transition really well.
Mm-hmm.
Though more usually it's drama and not so much horror, but still we've seen comedians, and some of them fall on their face, but some of them do really well. So when I heard Chris Rock was doing it, I was hesitant, but I was like curious of what direction they were going to go with him being the star. I'm like, okay, you've piqued my interest into what are you going to bring to this story that pretty much devolved into what creative ways can we kill people? So I was interested. I mean, they had, I heard Sam Jackson was also going to be in it, and I looked at some of the other cast and read the, kind of the summary of what the story was going to be. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'll go pay my ticket to go see Chris Rock in a horror film. I want to see what he can do and what they do with it,
Yeah, I was a little bit hesitant at first, but I think mainly because of the success Jordan Peele had and the success John Krasinski had, and of course, then we had oh darn, what's his name? The guy that wrote for Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, escapes me right now. But when we have all these people that come mainly from comedy, and now they're going into horror. So I felt as though, I guess maybe Chris Rock said, "Hey, look, I'm going to throw my hat in the horror genre," because he said he was a huge fan of the Saw movies. I liked the kind of premise that they had. I'm glad they did not try to throw Tobin Bell in here again.
he does make a cameo through a photograph,
but at least we just see a photograph. But the last thing we needed was another appearance by Tobin Bell. Not the fact that I don't mind Tobin Bell, because he was such a great character, and I enjoy what he's done with the character, John Kramer character. But after Jigsaw, I think we ran enough with that. With that character, it's just like with Scream 5. It's like, what more can you do with those three characters? It's like, but they're coming out with Scream 5. But I digress.
They're gonna make Sidney the killer. That's the only way I think you could justify a Scream 5, and I'd be all for it. That's fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, put it this way: if you're going to do that, at least one of them has to die, or make Sidney the killer. That's the only way you anything left out of those three characters. Yeah, but when I heard that Samuel Jackson was going to be cast, I was, this is going to be pretty good. And then when I read the synopsis, I said, well, this is going to be an interesting story. And then now, obviously, now that we've seen the movie, what are your overall opinions of the movie itself?
Well, as I said in my review, I enjoyed. They had me until you get to that Saw reveal, basically the little twist, which wasn't really a twist because we all saw it coming. It was like, it's just so obvious. It was like, oh, we cast Benedict Cumberbatch in the next Star Trek film. No, he's not Khan, and everybody's like, yeah, he's fucking Khan. Pardon my French, but then you see here, and you're introduced to the one character, and you're just like, oh, it's him. And sure enough, by the end of the film, they do the big reveal, and you're like, "Yep." You know, they had me. They had me until the end. The ending was a head scratcher, and not even so much of the reveal of well, like you said, spoilers here, folks. Not even because it's the reveal of his partner, because like I said, that was pretty obvious.
Oh yeah,
That I mean, if you don't pick up on the hints or just the fact of the way they have it structured, you're like you're missing a lot.
yeah.
um
And for me, it wasn't even the hints. It was just
no,
obvious. It was
yeah,
just plain obvious.
just this attitude, everything. You're just like, can you make it more obvious? There's no red herrings in here either. They whatever they came up with for a red herring to try to throw the audience off was weak. Was
Mhm.
holy, but I was really into it. It was more of a crime procedural. It was kind of the way you wanted to take it. Chris Rock was holding it pretty well, not
Mhm.
slipping in. We get the opening where he's Chris Rock as
Oh
Chris
yeah,
Rock, but
yeah. That was definitely something he's done in his stand up performances.
yeah,
That's definitely what it is. And you get some moments like that, but at least it's not thrown in all the
right.
time.
Yeah, but then the ending happened to where he gets behind the door and we have Sam Jackson's character strung up. And the problem I have with it, there were so many ways that could have gone, and
Hmm.
the way they went made the least amount of sense as far as what you could do if you were Chris Rock's character, that situation. In all honesty, I like it. And I know what they were kind of going for, but at the same time, I'm just like, no, look, you could shoot him and still get him down. You could still shoot the target and tackle him. You could just go tackle him. He's literally standing. You just tackled him earlier. He's literally standing like 5 feet. I'm like, it was one of those things where that ending, I think, kept me from really giving it a more solid review, because I was just like, oh, you just whiffed it at the end for me.
Yeah, because
You know.
to me, as I stated in my review, I like the different take. I like the
Mhm.
fact that this is more of a police procedure and not some of the stuff that we've seen throughout the Saw series, because it was getting a bit redundant. Other than how many more creative ways we can put people in traps, it's almost just like with Final Destination. It's
Right.
like how many more great ways we can design to kill people, and here, at least this way, we have something totally different. So I really give the writers credit for trying something different. Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, the reveal about who the person was I guessed it probably within 20 minutes after the movie came out,
Yeah.
and it made the review rather lackluster. I did, however, kind of like the fact that it could have been anybody else, because most of the people that they tried to throw at you, they were not good people at all.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. There's no. That's the one thing, is there's really
Mm,
no good people in here, and we even it's revealed later on that our main guy, Chris Rock, character what he plays is basically the only good person,
yeah,
like,
no,
out of this
out of his
entire
career.
department, including his dad. And I like that angle, though. I'm like, okay, because I think, in all honesty, there's some subtext that they were going for in here. I don't know if you want me to get into that too much,
Oh
but I
yeah, yeah,
think but I
yeah.
think there's some subtext in here that, with everything going on in the real world, especially
Hmm.
dealing with law enforcement, it almost felt like they were saying, "Hey, look, there are good cops, but here's the challenges that the good cops run into if they try to do something good," which, his character tried to do. And like 10 years later, he's still getting rats on his desk. He's still
Hmm.
being pretty much a pariah in the department,
Hmm.
because he did a good thing and actually turned the one guy in for just cold murdering someone.
I know,
you know
yeah, it was. Yes, why I like the analogy that they did,
Mhm.
based upon what's happening right now in today's society when it comes to police officers, and seeing that, and it's like, hey, look, yeah, we know we got a lot of bad police officers out there, but we do have some good cops, and you kind of felt sorry for his character,
Oh
because
yeah.
he's tried to do the right thing, and he's actually a pretty good officer too. He's not a
Mhm.
bad cop. He's not just like a bad cop, but he's not a poor cop. He's actually a very good detective. And the fact that having to live under his father's shadows, and he still managed to at least become a detective and a good
Mhm.
detective. So I really appreciate what the writers did for that character.
Yeah, it was a great character, and
Mm,
Zeke Banks, that was the name, Zeke.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I like Chris Rock's performance in here. I got worried, like we said, when it opened and it was Chris Rock doing kind of his shtick from stand up, and I'm like, okay, are we going to get past this? And then we did get past it. We got into his character more, and yeah, he is not an inept cop. The cops around him are
Mm.
inept. Um, and I did like the banter between him and Sam Jackson, his
Hmm.
dad. I thought that was real interesting. In fact, I wanted to see a little more of that
Yeah, no,
of
yeah.
those two.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
the one of the disappointing facts of the film is that we don't get enough father and son time because they're great on the screen together.
yeah.
I really enjoyed them. I just wish we had more of those together because Chris Rock and Samuel Jackson were pretty good with each other.
Mhm.
I think her name is Marisol. I forget her last name. The
Nichols.
Yeah, Marisol Nichols. She's
Mhm.
pretty good in the film. She's pretty good in the film.
Oh yeah, as the captain. Yeah, I liked
Mm,
her too. She held her own. I mean, I like that dynamic the most.
mm,
Those three. Whenever they were in screens scenes together, they were really good scenes. I mean, there's a lot of great sections in this film. I really enjoyed.
mm.
I just wish the story would have gone slightly different at the end. It felt like they tried to like, oh crap, we're still doing a Saw movie. We've got to end it this way at the when
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, we got to do something like the Saw. It's like, yeah, but try to do something a little different. It doesn't matter if it's even if it is Saw. Try to do something different so we don't have to fall back to, oh, here we go again.
well, yeah, I mean, it says from the book of Saw, which means you've pretty much set up in the title expectations. This is going to be something different. You don't need the big reveal. You don't need this morality at the end of what the character's actually going to do, save his dad or let the bad guy go. When, like I said, the way they set that up, they set
Mm-hmm.
it up very poorly to where he could have done both. He
Mm-hmm.
really could have done both before the guys cut the rope. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then told him don't cut the rope. You know what I mean? It was that was the one thing is at least the early Saw films, when you got to that point of that final reveal of the choice that your final main character has to make,
Mm-hmm.
it set up fairly well to where those are really their only two choices.
Mm-hmm.
You get it. You're like that situation they're
Yeah,
in.
I
And
mean because that's why I like Saw 2 out of
Mhm.
everything,
Oh yeah.
all the Saws because you have Donnie Wahlberg's character, he has to make that final choice. So unfortunately, he makes the wrong one.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be Saw if he
It's like,
made right one. I mean,
uh-huh.
I liked the gimmick they did with the hacksaw,
Mhm.
uh, implying that he might have to
Cut his hand.
cut his
Yeah, I
hand
like
off.
that too.
And I'm like, he was at least they showed how smart this character actually was, and I liked that bit too. And there's a couple other nods to the original, and of course, with Sam Jackson in here, you do get a nod to Pulp Fiction as well.
Oh yeah.
On the safe door, Jules.
Oh yeah. I say there's a Pulp Fiction Easter egg because I was laughing at the part, and I think
Yeah,
my wife Kelly come down. She says, "What's so funny?" I said, "It's a Pulp Fiction reference right there." She's like, "Pulp Fiction." I said, "You
Jules and yeah.
yeah, I said you don't get it. You didn't see the movie, so you don't get it." I actually gonna thought he was gonna talk about hamburgers.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for you. You want to go get a hamburger? I thought for sure they were going to go have a hamburger for dinner between the two of them, but so that they threw some of that in there, which I liked, to let you know that they're aware, and they're having a little bit of fun here.
Mm-hmm.
um it's not an awful film. Some people really, I mean, I didn't think it was the, oh my god, this is so great, like some people, but there's a lot of people that were panning it, and I'm like, it's watchable for sure.
It's
I
not bad
mean,
because, like I said, it's not bad. I
mm-mm.
enjoyed the film. I gave it
Same
three.
here.
Yeah, I gave it 3 out of my 5 bloody gold coins. It's like it's a nice addition to the Saw. It's
Mhm.
definitely better than Jigsaw.
It's better than the last like 2 or 3
Mm,
Saw films, in all honesty. Like I think you hit it. And Saw 2 was a really solid follow-up
Mhm.
Saw 3 was okay, and then by Saw 4, you're like, okay, how many other characters from Saw 1 can we work back into the movie
No, it's
as
like
killers?
it's like yeah, and obviously the traps. I actually enjoyed the traps. I thought the traps were very very well designed, and I liked that it actually incorporated to what he was doing with the
Mhm.
people in the traps.
Yeah, though with the
Yeah,
captain one was the hardest one to buy. Oh, put
yeah,
your neck down. I'm like, no, she's going to die either way. You're not giving her an option to live in this one.
yeah. It's like yeah, that trap I didn't understand. The other out of all the traps that the guy set up, that one trap I said I don't get that trap. That trap doesn't make any sense to me. What's that
No,
got? No, no. It's like yeah, I know she was hired because she was the one that that covered up all the
yeah.
crimes. Yet, but and she got captain, and like, but how's that? You know, breaking her spine to free herself. How that's going to? I didn't get that one. That didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, but all the other traps were pretty good. I did like the
Mhm.
traps. I like they were gruesome. They were bloody, especially when the guys, he's got his finger and he's got to have his fingers cut off. That was
Yeah.
very gruesome.
Yeah, oh, no, I'm glad they went to the rated R
Mm,
angle with it. I'm like, you can't do Saw PG-13. I
no.
mean, you can't with this series and tell the story you wanna tell
Mm-mm.
in the Jigsaw world. I'm interested in where they're gonna go with it. I think it's successful enough to where they could possibly, especially with all the streaming content out there now, that they could possibly justify bringing it back, because I wanna see more of Zeke in action and see maybe them expand a little more on it,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with his dad having been Swiss cheesed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
no.
Again, that whole part, I'm like, it's another part where you look at the cops and you're like, really, guys, really?
It's like
Like,
you don't recognize you. That's the one thing it didn't get me. You don't recognize a fellow cop standing it there. But it just kind of again reflects the fact about what some cops do is they simply just
well, yeah,
react.
yeah.
Uh,
No,
mm,
I mean, and I get that, but at the same time, the guy is in the air. He's
mm,
got cables coming from him. I understand it's a high tension moment, but
mhm,
the way he is, just move out of the way. All you got to do is step to the left or right of the shotgun, and it's gonna miss you.
mhm,
Never mind, it's also a shotgun, and you've got body armor. So yeah, but you're right. No, I know they were going for that too. It was just, it felt very sloppy at the end. I felt like they reminded themselves that they were in a Saw film and they had to do something like this, when I was hoping it would go a different route,
mhm,
um, than it did. I'm like, they could have easily handled it to where his dad didn't get shot by the cops, but
mhm,
um, and not noticing the guy going into the elevator, really?
mhm.
I'm like,
It's like, wait a minute, the guy's going in the elevator. Where aren't you guys looking at the other guy? But you guys suspend your belief when sometimes you look at some of these movies.
oh no, and I do. It's just it was one of those where, since it's the climax, it's in front of you, and there was just some glaring holes in that ending that they could have easily have still did what they wanted to do, and not gone the route they did, because it had me a bit scratching my head at the end. They had me up until that point though. To that point, I was really into this film. I'm like, okay, I'm into this. I can dig this. This
Oh yeah, it's
this
like
is a
this.
fun direction to go to. And then we get puppet Samuel Jackson, and I'm just like, plus let's face it, unless he was feeding him some red meat, he would have bled to death long ago. If you take
Yeah,
a little summary of how much blood was in each jar.
I know. That's the other thing. I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't he be dead by now?
Like,
I think the human body only holds like 4 liters of blood. I don't know. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 liters, but I know that long he should be dead by now.
like, yeah, unless he was feeding him or something. I mean, it wasn't exactly a slow bleed either. So I'm looking
Mm-mm.
at it going, he's been missing for 2 or 3 days, and he'd have been bled out by now. I mean, if not, his organs would have failed by now anyway. I like it. Just they had too much blood in the jars, because I'm like, you got like 4 gallons there already, man, at
Mhm.
least. But
Uh,
it. I think it'll revitalize and gives them an opportunity to go in another few directions,
redirections.
especially with him with the reveal of how he said he is just one of many people who admired Jigsaw. I personally would love to see him take a direction similar to the following Kevin Bacon series that
Oh
they
yeah,
did,
yeah, yeah. That
where
yeah, I like that one.
I loved it. I felt bad that got canceled because I really loved that series and the way they
Mhm.
explored the cult mentality and how some of these people ran with this idea even more so than the cult leader had planned. And they could do a lot of that with this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It doesn't have to go back to Tobin Bell anymore.
Yeah, yeah, because you can actually have a society that that are cult like followers of John Kramer, and
Mhm.
they can go ahead and continue his work. But it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they're going to follow up, and know if they will do a sequel, and whether or not Chris Rock wants to come back, or they might decide to do a whole entire cast. That'll be interesting to see what they'll do.
And I would love to actually see like a group of survivors, like they did kind of in the early Saw films, a group of survivors from Kramer's from the Jigsaw's traps,
Mm.
hunting down those who are following the cult of him, who are still following in his footsteps, and so you get these two groups of people. I think it would be interesting.
Now that
So,
be inter- now that would be interesting.
but we'll see. We'll see
You'll
what
see.
happens. Money. So
Hmm.
it all
Yeah,
comes down to
all
money.
box office determine it. All right, so now we're going to go on to the second film, and that is the third Conjuring film, The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. Now, of course, obviously, no one was surprised about the third Conjuring film because this is overall, as I stated in my review, this is the first horror universe that we've had. I think probably outside of the Universal monsters, if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty much, unless you count Jason versus Freddy connecting those two properties, you pretty much, yeah, this is the only other horror universe that you had where you had like spin-offs and everything taking place and linked in some way.
Hmm.
Well, outside of Trauma. But as far as wide release,
Yeah.
Trauma links a lot of things in Tromaville. So, and
Hmm.
you have that whole world. They've been doing that for eons. But
Hmm.
yeah, it is one of probably the first like wide release mainstream horror universes since the Universal monsters.
And so obviously, we're continuing the true life investigation of Ed Lorraine Warren. And this time, Dark Demon Queen, she did not like the
A lot
Conjuring.
of people did. A lot of
Yeah, a
people
lot of
did.
people did not like the Conjuring 3. And but it was the first time where we actually get the case where the guy said in open court that, hey, look, I was possessed by a demon, so the devil
Mhm.
made me do it. And overall, overall, as I stated in my review, I actually did like the movie mainly because of Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga's performance. They once again do a great job portraying these two characters. You can see that as Ed and Lorraine, they love each other. Obviously, love is the focal point in this particular movie. But to me, it's the weakest of the overall three Conjuring films, and mainly because, unlike with the first two films, this was not directed by James Wan. This was
Yeah.
directed by Michael Chebes, who did The Curse of La Llorona, who, unfortunately, in my opinion, is the worst
Oh,
movie in the franchise.
I thought Annabelle would have been the worst, but it rivaled Annabelle for being, for me, the worst in the series. Both of those together those were not good films.
Yeah. And not to give him any, I give him credit because I think he knows something about horror, but
Mhm.
he did not put the horror in this particular movie, and that's what you expect out of The Conjuring, not blood and guts and gore, but actual horror, and that was missing in this particular film. And also, this film was not written by the Hayes brothers. The
Mhm.
Hayes brothers wrote the first two. This was not written by the Hayes brothers, and I think one of the huge problems that they have is, unlike with the first one where we focus on the parent family, and then the second one we focus on the Hodgins family, this one you barely focus on Arnie. He gets no type of character development. I would like to know more about his character, what type of man he was. Was he a good guy? Was he a bad guy? We just focus on the Warrens and their little investigation, which I don't have a problem with, but I want to see more of Arnie. So that was my huge problem with the Conjuring 3 was the lack of any horror
Mm-hmm.
because you expect it. You do get some moments of horror, but not the type of horror you expect out of the Conjuring film. And like I said, the lack of character development. Everyone else gets pushed aside, and we just focus on the Warrens, and that was basically it.
Yeah, for me, I put it just above one. I enjoyed one,
Mm.
and I gave both about the same rating. But if I had the choice between watching one and The Devil Made Me Do It, I'd probably watch The Devil Made Me Do It, only because, again, as you mentioned, for Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, these Warrens are not the real life Warrens, and I separate it from there, even though they say it's based on. I wish they wouldn't say based on a true story, because the
Mm.
true story that this film is based off of
I know.
never even made it past court. They tried to do the possession thing, and the judge was like, "Yeah, no." And that was the end of it. I mean, there was no question or debate. The judge never even let him go that far. So it's a little tough when they say based on that. I think the film starts strong. The film
Oh
had
yeah.
me definitely in the beginning with the possessed kidnap. I wanted to see more backstory of the examples of the kid, leading up to the possession, like you said, and then into the Arnie stuff and focusing on the kids. I didn't mind the exploration of the Warrens, but I
Mm.
don't think it's needed, because we did a lot of that in two, and for me, two is still the best one out of the entire series.
Oh yeah. Same for me. Yes.
I think they handled the scares well, the creepiness and everything in two was, they had improved from one, and it really hit for me, and I enjoyed it far more than I thought I was going to. But this one, I enjoyed it. I found myself more interested when they had to go search for the missing girl.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the side plot. I found that more interesting than a lot of what they were going for with the main story. And yeah, it is basically Lorraine's story, and they do a lot of exploration there. But it is more of a murder mystery, more so than a than a horror film. Though you do still get your horror moments,
Still
just
get
not
your home.
nearly as many as we've seen before.
Yeah, because I kind of like I guess when after they it's the first time you actually see Ed in a very bad position. He almost has a heart attack, and he's crippled
Mhm.
throughout the whole film. So I kind of get that part. Though some people didn't like that at all. They kind of sort of cheapens. But I actually and see the fact that he's not 100% throughout the film. I get that. Kind of puts some more stress and danger to the
Mhm.
Warrens in this particular. So I had no problem with that at all. And I guess, like I said before, I did enjoy that aspect of seeing them actually do a little murder mystery. There were
Mhm.
some funny parts that I liked that was thrown in there. I actually like that little unintentional humor is great in horror films.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Or even the intentional done well and
Mm.
done to where it feels natural. I know, I think you brought it up in your review. Probably my favorite and actually a very humorous moment was where they have her try to prove how she's a psychic.
Mhm.
Um, it's a that's a great sequence in this film. The way it was directed and handled, and the way the performance was, and everything was just her choosing that, because you needed that so they would buy into letting her investigate. But you
Mhm.
needed to do it in a believable way, and the way they handled it, I thought
Yeah, no.
was really well done. Again, that was another section of the film I found more fascinating than the whole story with Arnie. In all honesty, I didn't give a flying leap about Arnie. I'm like, oh, he's possessed. And can I, Monty, look, I do have this out to everybody. I understand, really. But when you're dealing with a film with demonic possession,
Mhm.
religion and Christianity are going to be at the forefront in the film. I'm sorry. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but 99.9% of the time, if you're dealing with people being possessed, you're going to have religion in there. I saw some people going, "Oh, this Christian horror film," and that. I'm like, it's about demonic
I
possession.
mean, yeah. I hear that, but I didn't see that in other reviews. But yeah, but if I ever saw it, I'm like, wait a minute, guys, this is possession. you're going to have Christianity into it. It's like that's expected to be in the film.
Some kind of religion, it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
necessarily, but you're going to have religion in the film. Usually it's Christianity because it's usually the ultimate good versus evil in many people's eyes, the
Hmm.
Christian versus the demon. And the whole idea in this, yes, spoiler folks, of the demon under the control of someone, the film kind of took this almost superhero type of angle to where she's doling out this demon to kill people. Though I did like John Noble and his Kastner character, but I like John Noble in anything. I thought he was really great in here.
Oh
It's
yeah, it's John Noble.
it's John Noble. It's a shame they wasted this character in this film, just because I thought he was interesting, and they could have done a lot more, I think, with it being possibly him versus the Warrens,
Hmm.
or him working with his daughter against the Warrens.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. And again, that's another one, kind of like in Spiral, though, when you meet him and he says, "Oh, I investigated a cult for 9 years." You're like, "Oh, well, it's linked to him somehow."
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Because at first I thought, oh no, he's going to be the bad guy, which I wouldn't mind because I love John Noble being a good guy or a bad guy.
Hmm.
Guy. He's such a great character actor,
Hmm. I
and not just in Lord of the Rings, but Fringe.
oh yeah, I love his performances in just about everything he was in. I loved him in The Fringe.
Mhm.
Um, I liked the kid too that they had, the young kid who was
Mhm.
possessed in the beginning. I thought
Mhm.
he did really well for a young kid in a movie like this. I thought he sold things very well and very believable,
Mhm.
quite a bit. Again, the Arnie character, I didn't care.
I know because they didn't really don't. They did nothing to him. He was just there, and he's possessed, and that's it.
I didn't care for him or his fiance.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's odd because with the other two main Conjuring films, it was always the focus on the family, and the Warrens were the sub story of sorts. And in this one, oh, we're making the Warrens the main story, and the family is like an afterthought. We don't care about Arnie and his fiance and that, because we're not given anything to really
Mhm.
care for them at all. you know
Yeah.
oh, look, he killed their a-hole drunk landlord. Okay, fine. The guy was a jerk anyway. I
Yeah,
mean,
he was being a total asshole. I think one of the best scenes in the film is when Ed and Lorraine are talking to his defense attorney,
yeah.
and she's telling them, "You got to be crazy. There's no way in the world that I can
Oh,
bring this defense." And they take her to the. You got to come to our house, and you'll know for sure. Then we don't get to see it, but her reaction was priceless. I was dying laughing. I said,
yeah,
"Oh
that was hilarious. Again, that was some humor and scenes that worked, that landed,
man."
was that type of stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
um but again, I really wish they wouldn't base it off of the real events, or based off of real. Just give them their own story. Quit basing it off of them, because the Warrens in real life, a lot of people keep equating the real life Warrens to the ones in the movies. I'm like, they're not the same people
No, no,
at
I know
all.
because if I remember correctly, because I think Gory does she can't. I think I don't know. She likes some of the Conjuring films, but I know
Mhm.
she can't stand the Warrens in real life. I'm not. I don't know if because I
Sure.
remember her saying about the first Conjuring how the fact that she doesn't like the Warrens because they were
Con artist.
they
Yeah.
were con artists. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the Borg scene was good. I liked the fact that you could see the boom mic in the back. No, just kidding. But you could actually. I love big budgeted movies and big studio films, and you still will get a boom mic in the back. There's a scene in the morgue. No, I liked how they handled the morgue scene too. And yeah, creepy
Mhm.
old Walking Dead fat guy. I liked that sequence as well. That sequence was creepy.
Oh
That
yeah.
that that was Conjuring-esque as
Yeah, I
far
know
as.
that's the Conjuring when you get those creepy scenes. It's just like with Valak, or
Mhm.
the creepy scene that where Judy gets to meet Annabelle and whatchamacallem. She said she missed the boom mic.
In case someone ever watches it, it's like the first or second time. I'm horrible. I'm sorry, folks, that I notice these things. But she grabs when she's going to grab the dead girl's hand on the
And
table behind her because it's an upshot on the pole. You could see the shadow of the boom mic on there because it's there for like one scene and then they cut away and they cut back and then it's gone. It's very obvious there was the boom that was.
yeah, yeah, that's why you have to be careful when you're staging your scenes, and you have to make sure that because sometimes you'll get to see, like especially when you're filming reflections, and you get to
Oh
see the
yeah.
person with the camera, and have to
I,
edit that out, or you get boom mics you're not supposed to be seeing.
I mean, it's not like Black Dynamite boom mics showing up. Don't get me
Mm-mm.
wrong, but it was definitely there. But still, I like that whole sequence in the morgue because that was Conjuring-esque. We just don't get a lot of those
Mm.
in this film. That's one thing that Conjuring 2 really did well is even when you don't get the extreme horror scenes, you got the creepy scenes. I loved the nun in Conjuring 2. I didn't like the nun in The
But not,
Nun. I nearly fell asleep during that film. And then when at the very end, when it's some He-Man monster looking thing, I'm like, what the really? We traveled all this way through this film for
that's
that's what the nun is? Really?
I know that's what really made me so disappointed, because it's like you got a great gothic looking setting and it's beautiful, it's shot gorgeously, but then you come up with this CGI crap that
Oh,
just took everything out of it.
it did because that's what I loved about the nun creepy nun scenes in
Mhm,
2 was she was in the background, very gothic. They weren't necessarily jump scares, but they were creepy, scary scenes because she just kind of showing the shadows or whatnot. You know,
mhm,
I loved all of that bit they did with the nun. When she got her own movie, it was like, no, you're not a solo act. You're only supporting.
mhm,
Go back because that CGI at the end. At least we kind of did get that here, but yeah,
mhm,
and the ending I thought of The Devil Made Me Do It was good. I
mhm.
liked the ending quite a bit. I thought at least it had some tension to it. Yeah, well, yeah. Trust me, I barely remember two things. I remember the guy sitting in a chair for like ever. I remember him getting buried and having to ring a bell, and then I remember CGI none. That's about all I remember from that film. And I literally nearly fell asleep at least twice during that movie, which has never happened to me in a
I
theater
know, it's like,
before.
it seems like when the it's like when the Conjuring decides to do spin-offs and they don't get it right the first time, they always have to go back and make it right again, because they're supposed to be coming up with another nun. And I mean, it still make money.
Well,
Because these movies, it don't cost that much to make the movies. I think it only
oh
costed
no.
20, only costed 22 million to make the nun, and it grossed over a bunch of money
Oh yeah.
worldwide. So so they're going to make another nun. Let's just hope. What's it called? The Crooked Man that they're supposed to be doing. Let's just hope that actually the first time they bang that out, that actually is good. And
One can hope, but at least us as horror fans,
mhm,
we've got to appreciate the fact in the last, I would say, 8 years, we've gone from most of your horror being direct to video to now we're talking about three wide release horror films. But
mm,
you hit the nail on the head. The reason is they're dirt cheap to make for studios. And
mm,
especially if they're a property like this, they know they're going to at least make their money back, if not more. And then they use that money to fund their bigger budgeted films. And with COVID going on and box office sales being very light over the course of the pandemic, they've got to fill those coffers some way. Okay, let's
mm.
do some horror films. They're cheap.
Let's do a horror film.
You know, which they are. I mean, it's not a slam on them. It's just horror
They're
films
cheap.
are
I mean, just
look
like
at.
the horror movie I watched earlier today called The Retreat. I said that's probably wasn't that expensive to
Mm-mm.
make. It's a nice setting. Nice setting. You got a small cast. The only known person, I think his name is Sean Ashmore. No,
Yep.
no, yeah.
No, it was I forgot who it was. No, because I just recently watched The Retreat as well. It's not a bad film.
Yeah, it
Not a
wasn't
bad
bad. Not a
not a
bad
bad
film.
little indie film, but yeah, you're right. I mean, you don't need a very large cast for your horror film, you
Horror
know.
film. You know,
Um,
when I review only one of the problems I had with the film is too dark.
it was, yeah, there were some scenes in there. Did you know that they did two other films that are linked to this
Wait a minute,
movie? To
funny how 20. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Very true. It's
Uh,
very true. Bruce Wimple, the guy who did the Retreat, not to go too far off, did two other films set in that same world. He did Monstrous, which involves a Bigfoot, and then he does one that is the creature from the Retreat versus the creature in Monstrous. He actually shot like three films with almost the same type of cast in the location in the
mm,
Anarak Mountains. Just so you know, in case you're ever curious about the other two films that are actually linked to the Retreat. So that in its way is almost like another universe as well, kind of like the Conjuring.
mm,
With this, but yeah, that's cheap to make. But they love studios love the horror films if they need some money, because look at Texas Chainsaw.
mm.
God, in 3D.
Yeah, because
How many horror fans paid money to go see, oh, we're going back to the farm, it's going to see right what happened after the first film. Yay. We watched it. We're like, this is not how it was supposed to be. But it doesn't matter. They got our asses in the seat and they made their money back on opening weekend, for crying out loud.
yeah, because the last live stream I did with the horror hangout crew,
Yeah.
we talked about unpopular horror opinions, and
Mhm.
obviously when it comes to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's that happens to be one of the. Some people love, like, say, the first one, or some people love
Mhm.
Texas Chainsaw 3D, or Texas whatever you
Mhm.
want, Chainsaw DD. Some people
Yeah.
love Leatherface, but
See,
to me,
I enjoyed Leatherface, but
hmm.
what about you? Where do you stand with those?
I actually I'm one of the people where I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre not when it first came out. It's one of the few movies that came out during the 70s I did not see in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bit surprising for me. And then when I first saw it, I guess because I think I saw that first before I saw the remake, and then when I put the two films together, I actually prefer the remake better
Mm-hmm.
than the original. That's because the original seems more bloodier and deadly, more bloody and more gritty than the original. Even though I did enjoy the original, but I guess because at the time when it came out, a lot of filmmakers were trying to outshock their
But
because yeah, I mean, that's what films. I mean, you had The Last House on the Left, you had I Spit on
mm,
Your Grave, you
oof.
had The Hills Have Eyes, and you had all these other films trying to outshock each other. And then you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes out, and but you really don't see any blood. That's
Right.
the yeah, it's not bloody because when I see it,
No.
it's like, wow, there's really no blood. You know people are dying and they're being killed gruesomely, but you really it's really not gory, as
But,
opposed to, like, say, the other films that came out
mm.
during the 70s.
Dude, thank you for saying that,
Mm,
because I laugh. I'm a huge fan. That's one of my favorite horror films, is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
mm,
For many reasons. It's like indie horror at its core. That's the whole spirit, and seeing something like that take off and be success. But that, you're absolutely right. For those people who go, oh man, Texas Chainsaw, that's so extreme and it's so bloody. I'm like, there's one bloody scene in the entire film,
yeah.
and that's in the dark with
Mhm.
the guy in the wheelchair. Otherwise, there's a lot of creative cuts and direction to make you think you see a lot more blood, but you're not actually seeing a
Yeah,
lot
but I
more
mean,
blood.
yeah.
But people say, oh, it's so gory. I'm like, no, like, out of the ones you mentioned, actually, Texas Chainsaw is probably the least shocking out of, I Spit on Your Grave, Day of the Woman, Last House on the Left. Those ones really are
Bloody and gory and just
uncomfortable to actually
watch. Yeah,
watch. The
watch.
Hills Have Eyes, whereas Texas Chainsaw has disturbing scenes, but if you were going to clump them together, Texas Chainsaw is light sauce compared to the other films.
Yeah, but I think if you would have saw, I don't know if you actually saw the replay of the unpopular horror opinions. I
Uh,
think you would love that video that we did because
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
one of my friends, Jen and Christian,
Hmm.
Christian hates Scream. He can't stand. If you ever want to see someone get a good rant on, it's
Hey,
like
us film folks are passionate about what we love and what
you know,
we hate. That's
yeah,
for
he
sure.
cannot. Oh man, he just had us dying laughing the whole entire because like he mentioned it on the first time we on our other stream.
Yeah.
So when we did the unpopular ones, we just had to bring him back. We had him go do another rant about how much he can't stand the screen.
I, I know a
Big,
lot of people like that. I know a lot of people like that who
yeah,
hate the Scream films, and that's okay, different
I,
strokes. You
you
know.
know, and I get his point, and
Mhm.
it's a lot of people ask me, and I think there was a video, not to get off track, but there was a video that Jason from Sinister Cinema,
Mhm.
uh, I think about a month ago, and he talked about the Scream franchise, and a lot of people considered that Scream revitalized horror back in the '90s, and I said not really, and yeah, because there were still great horror films that came out during the '90s before Scream came out. Was it '95 or '96 when Scream out?
I think it was 95 or
Mhm.
maybe even 4. No, it might have been 5, but
Mm,
I don't think it's not that it didn't. I don't think when people say it's revitalized, at least for me, my perception, it's not so much that it revitalized it because, like you said, there was a lot of still good horror being released. I think it brought it back to the big screen and the wide release
mhm,
theaters, horror, and it showed that horror can poke fun at itself because there were so many movies trying to replicate the whole meta reference that you still see it today. Indie films really are big on that,
mhm,
and if done well, it's great, but a lot of times it's not, so
mhm,
I appreciate the first Scream what it was, but like the Conjuring series, as they got to 4, because we watched them all, and I think we've talked about the Scream films as they got on.
mhm,
The they became more of a gimmick, and it's just they lost their horror origins, the site of what made them scary, and The Devil Made Me Do It is just like that. In that it did was lacking a lot of those iconic and memorable scary moments that the other two Conjuring films that are properly called Conjuring had.
mhm.
Um, but I still enjoyed the story overall over one. But that was because I didn't quite care for the family in the first Conjuring.
Like the parents.
I I just didn't care. I'm like, oh darn, oh darn, they died. Oh shucks. Oh wait, she's not. What? Oh come on.
My thing with the Scream films, and because I said this before in another live stream, it wasn't that the fact it revitalized horror. It was just that at the time there really no popular
Mhm,
horror icons. We
mhm,
still had Chucky, but the latest Freddy, Jason, and Michael films were not that good.
mhm.
We really didn't have anything that was very popular horror wise. Yeah, we still had some decent horror movies. We had Misery, we had Candyman, we have The Silence of the Lambs, although most people consider that more psychological thriller than horror. But we really didn't have anything that really sparked our interest when it comes to horror movies. And then Scream came out, and then
Mhm.
bang, here we go again. We got Ghostface Killer.
Yeah, you're right. The icons had got watered down and buried in pop culture. I mean, Freddy, I want to see some people eating
Eating
plants.
plants.
They did get kind of watered down in pop culture, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you go into a horror film and people are cheering for your bad guy, it tells you something. I mean, that's what the '80s did. You don't go, you don't go into The Hills Have Eyes or The Last House on the Left and come out cheering for the bad guy.
Mm-mm.
But you get the slasher films that in the '80s, the golden age of horror again. Like some people would say, the second coming of horror that we got in cinema. You got those iconic characters, but yeah, by the '90s they became watered down. They had you had Freddie, where you could call the Freddie phone line for 99 cents a minute and he would tell you a
Oh.
horror story, Bride of, you had the Chucky films, but Chucky became a joke of itself, which,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, they were entertaining, but they weren't horror scary. They were funny. Bride of Chucky, when your
See
promo
the
is
Chucky.
Seed of Chucky, when your promo for Seed of Chucky, your promo swag are condoms. Come on, you've taken any type of the horror gusto out of him, and now you're just wanting to see the very charismatic horror person kill someone. And Scream did make your horror icon at least scary again, especially with a bit of the twist he took at the end, and the fact that it was the horror guy basically poking a little fun at the genre, I think, was also the appeal with Scream. You look at it where we've come now in like almost 30 years, 25 years or whatever from when the original, dear Lord, it's been that long.
Yeah. We're
You
getting old.
know, I the Conjuring, the Devil Made Me Do It is not what you need to revitalize the horror genre, and there's so much horror now because of the streaming channels and that
Mhm.
I think it'll be tough to come out with something original, so they're going to keep cranking out the Conjuring films, I think. And again, I don't mind the Warrens because of Patrick and Vera. I love how they're
Mhm.
what they've brought to these characters. I just wish they had a better story written
Yeah.
around them.
I think I think I would like this, and I think this we'll probably see this. We'll probably actually get a prequel where we see how the Warrens met and their first case as husband and wife, and we might get some. We might get some of the younger version of get cast to play the younger versions of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It would be interesting to see Tessa Farmiga actually play
Hmm.
Lorraine Warren instead of the nun,
Yeah, it would.
since
Yeah.
since her and Vera are sisters.
It would be interesting.
uh,
It definitely. I don't know where they're going to go with the series from here. Well, we mentioned the Crooked Man. They're going to come out with another spinoff. I mean,
mhm,
yeah, it's interesting that we have a Conjuring universe, similar to your McHugh universe, but at the same time, it's like this has a couple times in horror before, and unless you bring something interesting and new to it, it's gonna peter. It's gonna go direct to video. It's like,
or it'll go the route of the dark universe.
yeah, or it'll just kind of fade away where we don't mention the dark universe. The Conjuring 4 Amityville Financial Demolition Derby. I want to see that. Now I want to see that for sure. Possessed demolition cars, and the Warrens are out there
Mhm.
trying to depossess uh, 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 possessed demolition cars. There we go, in Amityville. Uh,
uh, Back to Betamax.
Back to Betamax. I've got some horror on Beta yet. I just need to fix my player, but hey.
I know. I can't find a Betamax machine anywhere.
Oh, it's tough. It's tough. The one I had broken, I couldn't get it to fix anymore, and I was sad. And I'm looking at the prices of some of them, and I'm like, I just can't. I did, even though I've got Night of the Comet on beta.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm like, but yeah.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the last movie, and I believe everyone will probably enjoy this one, is A Quiet Place Part 2. I had to say the best for last.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. So overall thoughts, what do you thought about Quiet Place Part 2?
I loved it. I actually enjoyed this more than the first one. I watched the first one with my oldest son because he hadn't actually seen that. He's
Mm.
gotten into horror film over the while, and yeah, I've got a lot of records as well. Records are definitely coming back. I dug it. This is what I wanted to see, and it was the direction they needed to go. And I really enjoyed this film quite a bit.
Mm.
It was better than it was everything that I wanted it to be. There were only a couple very minor hiccups in it, but overall, I'm like, Quiet Place 2 is just solid. I think that's the type of horror we really we
Mhm.
really need, I think, to help revitalize it, because as much as I love supernatural horror, there's really only a whole lot you can do. But the way they introduced a very interesting gimmick and it played it off very well. And in Quiet Place 2, they improved on it. They expanded the world. We got to see what was going on. And I love the lead actress in here, the hearing impaired girl. Her name escapes me.
Millicent Simmons.
Yes. I could have watched a whole movie. I could have seriously watched a whole movie where it was just her trying to survive making it across the wasteland. I really could have, because I dug those bits especially. But yeah, this is where you really want it to go, and it did not disappoint. And I was into it even more so than I thought I would be. I was not disappointed by it. It was worth the wait.
Mhm. Oh yeah, it was definitely what I expected to. I liked the beginning part of the film where we actually see day one,
Mhm.
seeing obviously John Krasinski. He's in the beginning part of the film. We get to see how the monsters attacked and how the people reacted to the monsters. It was nice way to start the film, and then obviously it picks up right where we left off with the end of the first film. I thought, Melissa Simmons was great. The guy that I think is Noah Jupe who plays Marcus. I thought he was actually pretty good. He wasn't as annoying as he was in the in the first
He
film.
he was still crying an awful lot. They got had to give him a little bit more than to get wide eye and running, but he was better in this one, especially at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
film than he was in the other
The
film.
other one, yeah, because after I finished watching this one, because I
Mhm.
actually went to the theaters and watched this was my first time back in the movie theater in
Same
over a
here.
year. Yeah,
Yep.
over a year. So seeing him, obviously he had a growth spurt
He did.
because
Yeah. It was
he had a
it was
growth.
like it's like, wow, he grew a lot in a day. Whoa.
I would say, oh
They
man, he's got a growth spurt. It's like because when you see him in the original, he's Melissa, she's tall and he's short, and next thing you know, come back out, he's just as tall. I think, wow, boy, did he have a growth spurt? Uh, I mentioned that in my review, and his voice is deeper.
his voice is deeper. He got a growth spurt. That's what happens when you get fury. He just had that adrenaline and it just shot everything right up.
uh,
Uh,
Yeah, but obviously the story focuses more on Melissa and Marcus, their characters. They have great character growth. She wants to honor her father's legacy because she sort of blamed herself for what happened to their youngest son
mhm.
in the first film, and he finally told her that he forgave her and he always loved her, and that was a very powerful moment in the first one, and we still have this powerful moment too. I love Cillian Murphy's performance in the
Oh yeah.
film. You can see he's a total contrast as to John Krasinski's character. He's given up. He's
Well, at the same time, he's more useful than John Krasinski's character. Even in the flashback, the dad is the most useless character in this entire series. Let's face it. Even in the first film, he was just he's made all the wrong decisions. The dead character I did not miss when he got munched in the first one. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Because, and I think it's because the Evelyn and Regan Abbott characters are so strong. Emily Blunt and Millicent Simmons play these characters strong, which is what you want.
Mhm.
That I didn't care about the dad, and up until pretty much near the end, the Marcus character, I didn't care too much for him either. But I liked Cillian Murphy in this quite a bit. And what I love about the sequel is that at least Krasinski does what many filmmakers don't do, is that he didn't give you everything still.
No,
There's a lot we still don't
still
know
don't know.
about the world.
Yeah, we don't know about the world. We do learn some more aspects about the creatures. The creatures in this one are more threatening and more
Yeah.
dangerous because we get more people. Now, I actually thought we are going to get more dangerous people, similar to The Walking Dead.
Right.
But obviously we don't get that, and we get maybe about 5 to 10 minutes of those dangerous people. And and Patrick from
Yeah.
he said
I'm glad. I totally agree. Cheetah, I totally agree that father was just he was Yeah, you could see why he got munched. And I'm glad they didn't take a Walking Dead approach with it, because it really gives you the idea of just how much these aliens have wiped out in just a little over a year of civilization. And
Mhm.
again, though, we don't have all the details. We get more, especially when they make it to the island.
Mm.
But at the same time, we don't get a full explanation. And I like that because it makes me want to see another film where we explore more of this world now, you know.
Oh yeah, because I would like to see some other aspects.
Mhm.
What other, is it just United States? Did they land
Right.
in Europe? Did they go to an island? Because now that we know that they can't swim, you
Right.
know, you know what uh, what other parts of the world can we explore? It's almost just like with The Walking Dead. You
Mhm.
have the Fear of the Walking Dead, then you have The Walking Dead Worlds Beyond. So that's interesting to see what they're going to do next with this story. And from what I understand, there's supposed to be a spin-off that they're going to try to do,
Right.
and there's supposed to be a third one. Mm.
Yeah, and I'm all for it if they're written similar. uh, yeah, they did kind of look like plants. And
Mm.
if it's written similar to the way these first two films were, I'm all for it and I'm all in, because this is the type of stuff I love. I love the fact that you get these morsels, and with the sequel, this sequel does what you want it to do. It expands yet doesn't give you all the answers. You
Hmm.
get to grow the characters quite a bit, and there are some. I mean, I'm glad I went to see this in the theater though.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
The sound design in this film is just friggin' amazing.
Hmm.
And you get some serious tense moments, and Krasinski actually handles things really well when we get like two or three similar events happening at once and we're jumping back and forth, but you don't lose the tension as you're jumping between those scenes. It was really well done. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
this I was like, yeah, I'm glad this was worth going back to
It's
the theater
definitely
for.
worth, because it's probably one of the few times I actually been to a movie theater and no one made a peep. I mean, no one, no baby whining, no one looking at their phones, no one trying to text, and someone's phone's going off. The whole movie is quiet. I mean, you
I,
just, because that's how people are just looking at the film and just very intense. And that's what I truly loved about going to the theater, and that's what I missed about going to a theater. Not
uh,
the not the ignorant people that make a bunch of stupid noise and stuff, but just enjoying a good movie on the screen.
I unfortunately had that because the only time I could see the movie was at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. And folks, if you're a horror fan, here's a little advice. If you want to enjoy your horror film nowadays with a modern audience, do not go to a horror film on a Saturday night at a 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock showing, because what will happen is you'll get the row of giggly teenagers behind you who feel the need to talk at nearly full volume during the film that's called A Quiet Place. Then you have to get your dad voice on and just look and give them the dad look and just go, shh. And then they finally get it after about 20 minutes. You
Well,
know,
it is a
ooh,
false. I felt the quiet was a mediocre installment, kind of like what led up to the second movie. Usually, is a week apart. No, so you're not going to make everybody happy.
different tastes. Horror
Mm.
movies and comedies for sure are really hard sells because it's what you're looking for. And if you come out entertained, and it's why I love movies.
Yeah.
Everybody can sit down, watch a movie, and you always come out of a film, and everybody will have a different experience. Some people will say, "Oh, that's the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen," and the person who was sitting two rows behind them are going, "This is awesome!"
Awesome.
You
Next, you know,
know,
they're doing the WWE chant. This is awesome.
and I know a number of people who didn't quite care for the Quiet Place too, and I get that, no problem. Me, I was entertained.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought it was a solid horror film, especially for theatrical releases. Of the three we talked about, I enjoyed this one the most.
So did I.
Because the world building in here, if nothing else, the world building that he does in here, I think is very well done.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
because if you're going to build a universe, then this is the step that you have to do. It's just
Right.
like with the MCU or the MICU, as you call it, almost like the
I've
the
been calling
Justice
it
League.
that. I've been calling that lately just to prod my friends. But
Uh, and that's the reason why I just didn't like Tom Cruise's, the Mummy, because they were too busy trying to jam everything in instead of just telling a simple story. And of course, Tom Cruise is miscast, but I digress.
no, what's the best thing out of the Mummy is the Jekyll and Hyde movie we didn't get
Mhm.
with what's his name, Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah,
I wanted to see a Jekyll and Hyde movie with Russell Crowe because
yeah,
he's the part of the entire film that I really enjoyed
yeah.
the of the Mummy.
I really did like that scene he had, especially when he turned into Mr. Hyde.
His division between the two characters. I'm like, where's that movie? Give
Mhm.
me that movie. I'll watch
Yeah, I'll
that.
take that one. That's right, Jim. It's I call it the Disney machine.
Disney owns, I don't know, I didn't look exact numbers, but I feel like Disney has their fingers in at least 40% of all media produced today in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's why I call it the Disney machine,
it
because
is.
if there's anything for the Disney to make money off of, they'll buy it or they'll lease it.
If Disney wants something to be successful, they will throw money into it until it's successful. If
Oh
they
yeah.
don't want it successful, I'm looking at you, John Carter. They won't even acknowledge its existence and just let it fade away and go, "What do you mean? There is no Song of the South. What are you talking about?" Well, where did Zippity Doo Dah song you're playing over there in Wonderland goes? What song? I don't get that off the playlist. No, we didn't make any movie like that.
Oh yeah, I loved Unhinged. He was great. He was great in Unhinged.
I didn't get a chance to see that, but I heard good things about it. But
Uh,
Russell Crowe, go figure, can play a really good, frustrated, angry guy. Who knew?
mm. Oh man, it to me is, it's just like with, and not to digress again, but
No.
bring up with the Star Wars thing. When they bought Star Wars, and all of a sudden it's, hey, look, we bought Star Wars. Let's throw another trilogy out there. It's like, oh, see, figure, say I knew it. They can't just let the series die just like it was supposed to be. It was a great conclusion with Return of the Jedi, but no, Disney says nope. We're going to make 3 more movies so we can make more money because we
Don't
own it.
don't forget the spin-offs.
Now,
Yeah.
I had no problem with Rogue One. Was not a fan of Solo.
See, and I liked Solo when I separated myself and go, oh, this is a good sci-fi heist film with some Star Wars characters in it. This isn't actually a legit, a continuation or whatever Star Wars films. I didn't mind it once I put it in that context.
Mhm.
I liked a lot of bits of Solo. I didn't think it was fantastic, but I thought it was better than what people made it out. But then again, what do I know? I liked The Last Jedi. I know.
Oh,
Oh,
the
I liked it.
fanboys are coming after you.
They're gonna come after me. I say that I enjoyed that more than Skywalker Rises.
You know,
But
I really didn't have a problem with The Last Jedi. I get what the director was trying to do. There are some parts I like. There are some parts I didn't like about The Last Jedi. But obviously, it's just like with Man of Steel. It's not your 50 Superman. This is not George Reeves. This is not Christopher Reeves. This is a modern take of Superman being in today's society. He's not in the 50s or the 40s, or even when Jerry and whatever Jerry
yeah,
and when they first created Superman. This is modern day Superman, so he's not going to be what we know the character to be. He's going to have flaws, so that's why I like what they did, what Zack Snyder did with Man of Steel, and it's the same thing what the director did with The Last Jedi. He was simply just trying to put his own spin on it. Yeah, I know a lot of people, I know the fanboys really criticize that because no, that's not Luke Skywalker, no, this
see,
not that. That's like, it's like
and I'm like, what do you mean that's not Luke Skywalker? Have you paid attention to the other two trilogies? Jedi's, when they get to a certain point, become old cranky hermits that shut themselves off from everyone. And the why I liked The Last Jedi was because it was taking it into a different direction.
Mhm.
It was trying to tie up, give you all the elements that you enjoyed from the original trilogy, but at the same time take it into an interesting direction to where you don't have just, you know, Sith and Jedi anymore. You just have people who use the Force. There's no just light or dark anymore. I liked that idea and where they were going, and no one liked it. But it goes back to horror and what we've talked about, Monty.
Mhm.
I mean, we are both no longer the target demographic for horror, nor
No.
should we be.
Mm-mm.
Horror is a young person's game. And I think many horror fans in our generations, the ones, the toxic ones, the ones that are very vocal, forget that this is not made for you anymore. And what
Mm-mm.
scared you back then and what worked for you back then when you loved those horror films doesn't work today. They laugh at that. You know?
I mean, it's just like when we did our popular horror films. Jen says that she thinks that The Exorcist is overrated, and I could understand that because that came out in the 70s. When you look at people like say like some of the other people that are the millennials, like I'll
Mm-hmm.
say like Vicky Nightmare Naven, Emma from Spooky Astronauts, or Gory Girl Felicia. Any of those they're some of them will actually appreciate The Exorcist, but some probably will not because they grew up watching Scream before they actually saw The Exorcist. So I said, "Well, I got." She said, "Don't get mad at me, man. Don't get mad at me." I said, "I'm not getting mad at you." Look, I grew up. I'm a '70s kid. I
Mm-hmm.
The Exorcist will always be my favorite horror film of all time. That's because I saw it when I was that age. When you become a certain age and you see certain horror films for the first time, you're going to enjoy those first before you catch up with the old school and the horror movies in the '70s, and that's how that is. So I'm not. I wasn't worried. I'm not surprised that some people don't think The Exorcist is good.
Hmm.
Some people think it's overrated. But that's their opinion.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's just a perspective. I mean, for me, The Shining is still a film. My friend Dawn, from the spoiler room, we went to see The Shining, the original, when it came out. They did a re-release for the
Mhm.
anniversary, which was restored beautifully. And she got a kick how that film still made me squirm because
Mhm.
when it came out, I watched it on video far younger than I should have, and it affected me. That film it's still kind of creepy. There's some people who watch it today go, "What's so scary about it?" But I think it's similar to what we mentioned when I mentioned John Carter and made a joke. It's when you first experience these films. Folks experiencing The Exorcist now, millennials, have seen many, many, many demonic possession films
Yeah, I'm
by this
saying.
point that have replicated The Exorcist. So by the time they watch The Exorcist, they're like, yeah.
Yeah. What's so good about that?
You know,
Let's see.
it's just like when John Carter came out. One of the main criticisms a lot of people said is, "Oh, this story is been done before. Oh, we've seen all these things before." And it's like, yeah, that's because John Carter is like 100-year-old sci-fi book, and it influenced every science fiction film
Did,
writer
didn't that
and movie person.
didn't that come out in the fit? The original John Carter. Didn't it come out? I forget. It came out
The
in the fourth.
the
The
book
book.
itself was far older than that. I think I forgot when the actual book came out. It was a really old book, and maybe not 100 years, but it was
Yeah, because
it
I know it's an old story. As it's
the
like some of the one of the older sci-fi books that came out.
yeah. So you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean. But that book was so impactful on every sci-fi writer and movie,
Mm-hmm.
maker after that. But people had seen all that before they had seen John Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're like, well, I've seen this before. Well, yeah, because all that stuff was based off of this. So I think horror is the same way. I think it depends on 1917. A Princess of Mars was
Mm-hmm.
written is when John Carter was first introduced in
Mm-hmm.
1917. So, I mean, just like horror, I think it's where you come into the genre that can affect how you might like some of these older films because they've been repeated. I watched a bunch of Alfred Hitchcock recently. I love Alfred Hitchcock. You
Mm-hmm.
can see so many modern film influences from Hitchcock, like The Rope and Rear Window and The Birds. If you look at those films, you go, oh, that's that director. Oh, that's where that director got that from.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's where
most of they get it from Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah,
you know,
just
but
don't
if
just don't watch the woman in the window.
but if you get a younger person who has watched a bunch of horror and then you show them Hitchcock, they're like, well, what's the big deal? I've seen this before. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
I think it's where you come in on it, on where not for everyone. That's the blank. I'm just saying in general, I think that can affect your perspective on some of the classic horror films. Because let's face it, the original Psycho won't scare most people, but it scared a shitload of people in the 60s. They didn't
Oh
want to
yeah,
take showers
yeah,
anymore.
oh yeah. I mean, it's just like because when I compare the 1959's The Fly to George of a
Mhm.
whatchamacallit's The Fly. At
Cronenberg's, yeah.
for Cronenberg's The Fly, as much as I appreciate what they did and loved
Mhm.
Jeff Goldblum and darn, her name escapes me now. Gina Davis. Gina Davis
Yeah.
and the practical effects, I cannot and will not stop loving that final scene in The Fly because I saw that first,
Right.
and that will always stick to me. It's just that's because I grew up watching that first before that Fly
Mhm.
came out. Obviously a lot of people saw the Fly, the remake of the Fly before the '59 version of the Fly. So you know,
And that's for me though. Psycho is probably one of my other all-time favorite horror films. I could watch that nearly every day. I love how that film plays out and how it's done. You know, So,
yeah,
I hear you there.
yeah, I'm pretty sure watching that in IMAX was not was an experience.
Yeah, but I think that's what the horror genre when you come in and with the Star Wars stuff. I'm a fanboy. It's in my DNA. Star Wars was the first film I saw. I was 2.5 years old. My parents took me to see it, and that explains a
Mhm.
lot of things. But so it's in my DNA, but I fully recognize what they were trying to do with like The Last Jedi. And I'm like, yes, give me something. Let's take it in a different direction. Where are they going to go? I don't know. And they fell back and answered and pretty much let the internet build the rise of Skywalker in many ways.
I know, yeah.
And horror films, we were looking at it. I introduced my son to Snakes on a Plane. He still talks to me, which is good. Um, he kind of appreciated. I'm like, this is the first movie the internet built, man. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, because
Um,
that film, everyone talked about that film, and it's funny because Kelly and I we went to see a midnight screening of Snakes on the Plane, and we bumped it. She loved it, and I
oh,
loved it too. Yeah, you
I
know.
loved it too. He was a bit amused,
Mm.
but he didn't quite. And I'm like, it was a product of its time. Internet was just coming up. They were going to call it something else. They were going to make it PG-13, and everybody's like, you have Sam Jackson in a horror film fighting snakes on a plane, and you're going to make it PG-13.
13? Mhm.
No.
No, no,
So
no.
someone made that fake trailer, an audio trailer, quoting Sam Jackson going, get these motherfucking snakes off my. And suddenly they reshot some scenes. They recut the film, made it R.
Mhm.
Still didn't do that great at the box office,
That's
but
obvious. Mhm.
it was something that the modern audiences wanted, and the internet built it. And we've gotten other films like that now where they're listening to the internet for the good and bad of it. Um, and with the horror films, yeah, I mean, the internet is kind of talky because they keep making these retro type films or falling back on these properties that have been around for a long time because of name recognition. But I personally want something new. And that's why I enjoyed The Quiet Place. I loved The Quiet Place too, because it still has those influences,
Mhm.
but it was still something at least a bit different enough for me to go, I'm into this and want to see more.
Mhm.
Whereas The Conjuring 3, it was like you had me for some of this, most of it. I enjoyed it, but there's still you could have done more with it. And Spiral, same thing. It's like you had me to a point. Oh,
Page two was on the second.
oh, there you go.
My great president throats. I got to say.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Canon Group's favorite. I say, him making fun of himself a bit. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. It's just insane. I've got it on Blu-ray. It's crazy. It's
Uh, one of my YouTube friends, Brad from Bronco Juggalo Talks Movies, he cannot stand Texas. He can't stand. If you ever want to piss him off, just talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
I wonder how he felt about Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Then,
I
uh,
I I think he likes that one. I don't know.
see, it's weird. I can't get into it, even with Matthew McConaughey. I could not get into that one. It's just, oh man. But again, different tastes, different
I know. Yeah,
folk.
we all
You
have
know?
different tastes. It's like there's uh people get it's like as much as people rip upon Freddie's dad, I enjoy Freddie's dad.
Oh yeah.
Much as people love Better Watch Out. I could not get into that movie mainly because that annoying kid. He couldn't get his way. Just as much as people enjoyed The Void, other than the great practical effects, I really have no clue about the what The Void was, and that ending was this was like what the
Oh,
hell.
and that was my type of film too. See, I like the Void,
Mhm,
Mandy, Doug Mandy quite a bit.
mhm.
Um, and then I like those kind of out there films where they take them where you just have no idea where they're going. Color Out of Space I thought was decent. Yeah, a lot of
Mhm.
Nicolas Cage recently attached horror. There's probably a reason for that. But I we the thing is there's so much horror out there that you have something for everyone, but not everything's going to be for everyone.
No.
And I think audiences as a general kind of forget that, especially the internet tend to forget that at times. Not all horror is going to be made for your horror fan. Your older horror fan. Not all of it's going to be for younger horror fans. Um
Mhm.
yeah, the acting in sound design. I mean, the sound design. I am so glad I saw A Quiet Place 2 in the theater. That was made to be watched and experienced in the theater, even with the jabbering teenagers behind me. They
Oh
shut
man.
up after a while. They shut up after a little while.
That's good. Oh man,
Um,
but man, ooh man, they take all the enjoyment out of it because that's the worst thing is when you go into a movie, you try to and you got some. Mm,
I still remember seeing The Hateful Eight. They packed the theater for the premiere of The Hateful Eight. It was just packed, the big mega screen. It was great sitting with a whole bunch of people. Everybody wanted to see it. As the movie started, someone was talking to his blonde girlfriend behind, and she was like, "Oh yeah," and they were talking nearly at their regular voice. And
mm,
the Hateful Eight opens with some quiet parts. My friend kept trying
mm.
to look back and saying she finally said, "Will you shut the f up?" At like full volume, and they did. It was hilarious.
I
People around them started laughing. They were just
must have scared them silly.
it was just great.
Uh,
Oh
all
man,
right.
yeah.
All right. So once again, Mark, thank you very much.
Oh,
Once again, I always love these live streams that we do. So I'm pretty sure we'll get together once again, and just like we do on your podcast, then which I'll be a part of once again. It's time for you to shrill what's coming up on the podcast, and what
uh,
other plans you have coming up.
we've got a number of things coming up. Somehow I made my way to being uh, when not even a quiet place is safe. I like that. Uh, I got 15 years on YouTube. July 9th is we're doing an AMA live. I don't know how many or if anybody's going to show up for it, but I've been on YouTube for 15 years and we're going to do a live AMA. I'm going to do commentary on some videos I posted when I first got on here and taking questions about just about anything. So that should be exciting. The podcast, yeah, we're doing our canon fodder this month. It's I'm a Hero month. You're involved in a few of the episodes coming up.
Mhm.
We'll be talking the rest of this month. We're going to be talking Remo Williams, which is we're going to be recording Tuesday, but then we're doing Superman 4 and Howard the Duck. So no movie is off the table in the spoiler room.
Nope.
But yeah,
that's not when it comes to canon films.
but I got Patreon and all that, and other things coming down the pipe too. All in line with being on YouTube for 15 years. Small but mighty channel. And yeah, you could go to specialmarkproductions.com for all your movie man needs. There's links to everything there. I do Twitch occasionally. I review vinyl records as well on It's Vinylly Mine. And yeah, it's if you go to the website, there's links to all of that there if you're interested at all. But we're almost as interesting as Lamont here. I love your shows and your take on horror, folks, and and Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson, and in an episode of Married with Children. Hey, don't mess with the remake of Casablanca with Pamela Anderson, okay? That. Oh man.
Oh man.
It's all coming back to me now, Lamont.
They're which it's not surprising going to remake Christine. That's in the works.
Okay,
that's to be expected.
Okay, I mean they've got to keep their rights on properties, right? So, Quiet Place 3, bring the noise, bring the funk. Hell yeah, I'll be in front row with that. A new musical.
Oh yeah. So I'll be as far as what I have coming up on the channel, I'll be reviewing the movie I just saw this already called The Retreat. It was pretty good. I liked it. Nice indie film. I have some more horror films coming up soon. Finally, we'll get to see The Unholy, although a lot of people said that was a bad horror film. And then, of course, since we're halfway through the year, what I always like to do since I started my channel is give out my top 5 best and top 5 worst horror films of the year so far. And it's going to be pretty interesting. I almost got it picked out as far as the best ones, but the worst ones, I really don't know yet.
There's so many to choose from.
There's plenty if I could choose. But yeah, so that's coming up on my channel is obviously a couple more horror movie reviews, and then my top 5 best and top 5 worst horror films of 2021 so far this year. Always love doing those top 10 or top 5.
Those can be fun. They be fun. Okay, and you'll definitely get discussions on whether or not you're right or wrong. By the way, the internet loves letting you know that.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. And it's amazing because I really don't get that many trolls. Yeah. But there was this horror movie I did a couple years ago. I did a horror movie review, and I think one of the producers commented on my review, and he let me have it. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, I'm not going to lie to my subscribers. If you're going to put a film where you're going, it's with the same type of setting that we've seen before with a cabin in the woods, then that's what I'm going to say, because he tried to say it was because it was in a farmhouse. It was supposed to be different, but it's still the same setting.
No. We're in a farmhouse this time. No,
and I actually did praise the film because it was the first time that we actually had an actual actor was deaf, and she was using ALS sign language. And I said I gave the film credit because that's what I did liked about the film was that, hey, look, we got a deaf actress that's using AOL, and I said we have not seen that in the horror picture in a while, so I give them credit for that. But then they were copying stuff from The Evil Dead. We have a book written in blood, and I criticized that, and he got all upset, and it's like, dude, can't you take criticism?
man, I had one indie sci-fi film director. I reviewed her film. It actually starred one of the guys who was in The Hobbit. And I didn't give a glowing review. It was okay. But I had images used in my review that I had permissions for and everything. That review was up for a year, no problem. Just before she was going to negotiate a contract for distribution with a major DVD distribution like Sony Entertainment or something, suddenly that video got flagged for major copyright strike, and I actually got a red strike on my channel for that review. And I'm like, it's been up a year and now you're here. And so I talked to the one person, the one PR person, and they're like, yeah, I'll tell you the story sometime. And and I found
No.
out that yeah, she totally did that just because my review wasn't a glowing one. She had it flagged so it was completely taken down so nobody would find it as she was negotiating
Oh.
uh the distribution. So I had to behave myself for 3 months at least.
Mm. Oh man, it's like it's like, come on now. Not everyone is not going to like your work, and trust me, I know how hard it is to get a movie made now these days, and I appreciate indie
Oh yeah.
filmmakers when they put their stuff out, and I'm pretty sure that what they believe what they're doing is good. But I say, look, I'm not going to lie or say anything that's not honest. I have to be honest because that's what my subscribers expect me to be. That's the type of channel that I've created since I've been on YouTube for over 4 years now. It's like they expect me to give my honest opinion, and that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not just because you know it's just bad as Facebook.
Yeah, it is bad as Facebook. It's getting there. YouTube
And
is definitely getting there. No, I got stories, but I feel you, man,
mhm,
with that. And it's one of those where I've talked to enough indie filmmakers over the years, and was even involved in a couple that most of them are in the other understanding is once they're done with the film and they put it out there, there's going to people that don't like it. Once you get it out there, it's no longer theirs, and they're just like, it's the world's now, and however
mhm,
people take it, that's how they take it. It's just that some trolls make it personal, and instead of comment on try the person rather than the film. And
mhm,
that's really wrong. And some indie filmmakers will take it as a good thing to get constructive criticism so they can
mm,
improve
yeah,
their next film.
mhm,
Because I've had a number of them tell me that, well, I'm glad you didn't just blow smoke up my butt, because they're like, you gave me some food for thought, and they'd actually go back and they could see some of the points that were made. And they're like, yeah, they're like, but you made good points too. So, it's, yeah, people don't
and
get that. And
you
it's
don't get
just,
it. It's like, but I said I didn't hate the movie wasn't bad. It's like I told him, I said, look, I didn't hate the film. And look, I even gave it credit because he had something that I haven't seen in a horror movie before. Take that. But all he did was just focus on some of the stuff I didn't agree with the film, and it's like, well, what do you want me to say? It's like that's what I saw in the film. And to me, it's just I said, look, you took points from no Cabin in the Woods,
yeah.
Evil Dead. What else am I supposed to do? But there. What are you going to do? You can't make everybody happy.
The joys of the internet, but thanks to the internet, I've gotten to meet wonderful people like yourself, Lamont. So
Yeah,
thank you
same
for
here.
having me on, my man. I've enjoyed this greatly. Always a pleasure to be on
Okay.
here, sir.
All right. All right. My horror fans, thank you very much for joining me and Mark once again. We'll be back pretty shortly. Probably talk about maybe Fast and Furious 5 9.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I'm stoked. I'm fully on board with that ridiculous ass franchise. I love it. I love every ridiculous moment of it. I don't
I
care.
know. Maybe the next time I'll bring Ashley from the movie Oracle. We could talk about that because we were talking about what else can they do with this series, and we said they go in space next time.
Oh God, yeah. I hope so. I want it in space, man. I want the muscle cars in space with jet engines on the back, like thrusters, and I want all that, man. I'll take it. I don't care.
Mhm. So good night, horror fans, and always remember that horror rules. And I'll see you in my next video. And once again, check out Mark the Movie Man's channel and all his other good stuff as well. See you later, horror fans. Have a good night.